in this tutorial, we're going to go over how to add bent portions to your track and actually calculate and add to the total length of your track. And we're also going to take this track and we're going to add it to our stud type or stud wall type, so that way it can calculate it with all of your studs and everything else. So just to kind of go over, I've already created this stud. So just a couple notes. You can see that there are the two bent ends at the end. There are visibility graphics added to this, so that way you can turn it on or off. And these can be controlled based on a type, so you can have a 6 1/4 inch 20 gauge track, and then one with a bent, so that way you can actually count that way. We're going to use these visibility graphics or yes/no parameters to feed into an if statement that will actually calculate whether or not you want it bent or you don't want it bent. So that's the general overview, so let's get started. So all I've really done is I've opened the steel track family that we've created before, and I'm just going to start by going into the reference level and adding some reference planes. So that's usually the first step, is you want to actually start by doing the modeling of the actual pieces. So we're going to add these in. We want these two dimensions to be the same as the flange for the rest of the track. So if we change it to a 2 inch, it'll change with it. We're going to go to the front, and then we're going to add another reference plane down here at the bottom, and we're going to also give this a parameter. Make sure you're attaching to the reference plane there. We're going to name this is a new one, so this is going to be named bent track length. So this will be a type, because this will be based on the types that we have. So we'll make that 3 inches, because that's usually a pretty standard bent track type, or bent track length. Now you can do this on both sides. You can do one on the left, you can do one on the right if you want. It's completely up to you. You'll just have to add extra parameters, that's all. Okay, so we have our reference plane set up. So we're going to actually go into the reference level, and then we're going to add an extrusion. So again, if you're doing this, I'm doing one extrusion because it's easier to do it that way, but if you're doing it separate, do 2 extrusions. So we're going to take these dimensions that we did, we're going to make these a gauge dimensions, so that way they always stay the same as what we want the rest of our track to be. So I just added some alignment dimensions from the reference plane to the end, and then just switched it all to gauge. So that's all you have to do. So if you go to here, we're just going to align these. So we're going to attach these to the reference planes. Same thing here. So we're going to actually align it this way. We want it to attach to the reference plane here. So attach that. 3D, and there you go. That's the model. So we're just going to add the track material to this, just so that way it's consistent. So it's all the same. And then we're also going to add a visibility graphic. So we're going to select this extrusion. We're going to go to visible, where it says visible, and then we're going to add a parameter and just call it vent track. And we're going to move it to under visibility. So it defaults to yes, no. You can only ever have a yes, no parameter under visibility. So, and then this is also going to be a type. So we'll hit OK. Okay. Cool. So we'll go to our types. So you see there's all our types here. If you go into them, it's going to default to a yes. So we have to make sure we go through and change that. So I'm going to change that here. Each one. Just going to hit apply, and then we're going to go back to our 3 5/8, and then we're going to add a new type, call it 3 5/8 inch track vent. Okay, and then we'll also add another one, and we'll call this one 6 inch track. So we'll make this 6 inches, and we'll say we want the bend to be on. We'll hit apply, and then we'll go to 3 5/8, and then we'll also want the bent on for this one as well. We'll hit apply. Cool. So that's pretty easy. We'll make this 3 inches, so it looks more normal. We'll do the same thing on this. This one 3 inches. Cool. So you can see everything works properly. The actual extrusion moves up and down. It doesn't break when we actually stretch it, so that's good. So that's for the most part. That's all the modeling we gotta do. So the next step is actually where we actually have to make this thing smart enough to calculate, add an extra length if we require the extra steel. So what we're going to actually do here is we're going to create a, well actually first we have to change this from report parameter, because we're going to require it to send the cut length to calculate with the cut length. So we're just going to change this real quick. So we're actually going to go to the edit. We're going to change this to, change it from reporting parameter, just uncheck that and hit OK. So next we're going to add another parameter. We're going to add this and call it, we're going to need one, just call it BT. It'll be a type parameter because it'll be based on the type that you're using, and that should be good. The rest should be good. So now that we have this actual yes no parameter, or for those of you that know coding, this is a true false, we're going to add an if statement based on that. So if you have let's say I guess the best way to explain it is if you're reading it. So you say if something is true or false, then do this. If not, then do this, which is pretty simple. So if you say, for instance, you started with an if, so that's calling the actual that's actually calling the actual calculation. So if bend track, so you call the bend track. So you say, first you're asking if this is yes or no, then do bend track length times 2. If not, then 0 inches. So basically what you're saying is if bend track is yes, then do this. If it's no, then do this. The comma just kind of just denotes the separation of yes and no. So if you hit apply, that's fine, remove constraints for now. We'll go back and fix that. So it's saying add 6 inches. So what we want this to do now is we want it to go, we want this one to say length plus BT, then hit apply. So that's going to send that cut length parameter back to the project when we actually calculate it. So just to kind of see if this works, you can test it right in here in the type properties or the family types. You can change it to, let's say we want this to be 150 inches. We hit apply. So see, it has 150 plus 6. Now if we turn this off, see, it goes back to 150. So that's exactly the way we want this to operate. So we're going to hit apply. Actually, we're going to change this back to 96. That's a pretty standard size. We're going to apply here and hit OK. And that kind of concludes this first part of this, the creation of this. So a couple things that you can check is if this is, just make sure that all your types are set up properly. So it looks like you get your bend track works here, non-bend works here, 6-inch works. So you're saying 6-inch bend. Okay. All seems as though it works out. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to import it into our steel track, our steel wall, and then we're going to have to change a few parameters to get it to work properly. So I'll see you guys in the next video.